Up until that moment, I thought the worst part of the evening was enduring their constant comparisons and criticisms. But I was wrong. What came next was the kind of betrayal you can never truly prepare for. Uncle Robert questioned whether my financial help had really been as significant as I was claiming. The worst part was watching Jake's face as he witnessed this coordinated attack on someone he cared about. He tried a few times to redirect the conversation or defend my achievements, but each attempt was quickly shut down or ignored. I could see him struggling to understand how a family could treat one of their own this way, especially someone who had worked so hard to build a life they should have been proud of. The moment that changed everything came during what should have been a casual conversation about future family gatherings and holiday plans. We had moved from the dining table to the living room, and I was serving coffee and the homemade pumpkin pie I had spent hours perfecting the day before. The atmosphere had been tense all evening, but I was still hoping we could end on a positive note. Mom was sitting in my favorite armchair, the one I had saved up for months to buy, and she was holding her coffee cup with the kind of delicate precision that somehow made it look like she was criticizing my choice of dishes. Jessica was showing everyone pictures on her phone of her children's recent school activities, and the room was filled with the warm admiration that I had been craving all evening. "Jessica, you're such a wonderful mother," Mom said, her voice soft with genuine affection. "Your children are so lucky to have someone who puts their needs first, someone they can always count on." Uncle Robert nodded in agreement and added, "That's what family is all about. Being there for each other, being reliable, being the kind of person others can depend on." I saw an opening in the conversation and tried once more to share something positive about my own life. I mentioned that Jake and I had been talking about our future together, about maybe starting to think about marriage and eventually having children of our own. I thought this would show them that I understood family values, that I wasn't just focused on career and material success. But instead of the warm response Jessica's family updates had received, my news was met with a different kind of attention. Mom's expression shifted, and I could see her preparing to deliver what she probably thought was some necessary tough love. "Sophia, honey," she said, and the false sweetness in her voice should have warned me what was coming. "I think you need to be realistic about your situation. Just because you have a nice apartment and a decent job right now doesn't mean you're ready for the kind of responsibilities that come with marriage and family." Aunt Susan nodded knowingly and added, "It's important to be financially stable before you take on obligations to other people. You want to make sure you can contribute to a partnership, not be a drain on it." I felt the familiar knot forming in my stomach, but I tried to defend myself calmly. I explained that I was financially stable, that my career was progressing well, and that Jake and I were both responsible adults who had thought carefully about our future together. That's when Mom delivered the words that would echo in my mind for months afterward. She set down her coffee cup, looked directly at me with an expression of what she probably thought was maternal wisdom, and said, with complete conviction, "Honestly, Mia, you can decorate this place and cook fancy meals, but you'll always be a burden to this family. We all know it." The silence that followed was deafening. Even Mark, who had been making snide comments all evening, seemed shocked by the bluntness of what she had just said. Jake's coffee cup stopped halfway to his lips, and I watched his face transform from surprise to anger to protective fury in the span of about 3 seconds. But it was the reaction of the other family members that really broke my heart. Uncle Robert suddenly became very interested in his phone. Aunt Susan examined her fingernails as if they held the secrets of the universe. Jessica stared at her lap, unwilling to make eye contact with anyone. Mark actually looked uncomfortable for the first time all evening, but not uncomfortable enough to say anything in my defense. In that moment of silence, something inside me shattered. But something else was born. All those years of trying to prove myself worthy of love and acceptance. All those hours of wondering what I was doing wrong. All those moments of feeling like I wasn't quite good enough. Suddenly, it all made sense. It wasn't about me at all. It was about them needing someone to be less than so they could feel better about themselves. I felt Jake's hand reach for mine under the table, and his touch gave me the strength I needed to find my voice. For the first time in my adult life, I was going to speak my truth to this family. Consequences be damned. What happened next surprised everyone in that room, including me. Instead of crumbling under the weight of Mom's cruel words like I had done so many times before, I felt something shift inside me. All those years of swallowing insults, accepting criticism, and trying to earn love that should have been freely given had led to this moment. I was done being their emotional punching bag. I stood up slowly, and my voice was steady when I spoke, which seemed to surprise them more than if I had started yelling. "You know what, Mom?" I said, looking directly into her eyes. "You're absolutely right. I have been a burden to this family, but not in the way you think." The room was so quiet you could hear the coffee cooling in their cups. I continued. "I've been a burden because I've spent my entire adult life trying to earn approval from people who were never going to give it. I've been a burden because I kept believing that if I just worked hard enough, achieved enough, gave enough, maybe you'd finally be proud of me." Mom opened her mouth to interrupt, but I held up my hand and kept going. "Let me finish, because I'm going to say this once, and then we're going to have a very different kind of relationship going forward." I turned to address the whole room, making eye contact with each person. As I spoke, "Uncle Robert, you want to talk about family responsibility? I've been sending my mother $500 every month for the past 2 years to help with her expenses. That's $12,000 in case you're keeping track." Uncle Robert's confident expression faltered, and I saw him glance uncertainly at Mom, who was staring at me with a mixture of shock and anger. "Mark," I continued, turning to my cousin, who was suddenly looking very sober. "Remember when you couldn't make your car payments last winter? And again this spring, I covered both of those for you. That was $1,400 total. And when you needed money for that job training program, you never actually finished another $800. Mark started to say something, but I wasn't finished. "And Uncle Robert, when you needed that short-term business loan 18 months ago because your accounts receivable were tied up in that big development project, I gave you $15,000. You paid me back eventually, but you never mentioned it to anyone else, did you?" The silence was becoming uncomfortable for them now, but I was just getting started. I had years of suppressed truth to share. "Jessica," I said, turning to my cousin, who still couldn't meet my eyes.